Deep in the bowels of a Syrian prison, two men lie motionless on cold stone slabs, their bodies shrouded in white sheets stained with what looks like blood. Guards grunt as they hoist the corpses onto stretchers, muttering prayers for the dead. A rickety ambulance waits outside under the cover of night, its engine idling like a predator in the shadows. As the door slams shut and the vehicle speeds away, no one suspects the impossible that these corpses are about to vanish into thin air, leaving Syria's intelligence apparatus scrambling in humiliation. This wasn't a movie. This was Mossad's audacious gamble, a fake death deception that rewrote the rules of espionage. But how did it unfold? And what price did these agents pay? In the high-stakes world of intelligence operations, where capture means torture and oblivion, survival demands the unthinkable. In 2017, a Mossad team slipped into Syria on a covert mission to disrupt regime supply lines, only to be betrayed and thrown into the notorious Meze military prison. Facing imminent execution, they hatched a plan straight out of a thriller novel: fake their own deaths, stage a body transfer, and slip across the border like ghosts. This script uncovers the full story how elite spies turned desperation into triumph, exposing the fragility of even the most iron-fisted regimes. What drove them to this edge, and what secrets did they carry out? Stay with me, because the truth is more chilling than fiction. Syria, in 2017, was a cauldron of chaos. The civil war had ravaged the country for 6 years, with Bashar al-Assad's forces clinging to power through brutal crackdowns and Russian backing. Meza prison, perched on a hill overlooking Damascus, wasn't just a jail, it was a black hole for dissidents, foreign spies, and anyone labeled an enemy. Interrogators, they're specialized in psychological torment, sleep deprivation, mock executions, and confessions extracted under threat of acid baths. Mossad, Israel's legendary intelligence agency, had long viewed Syria as enemy number one. Their operations targeted weapons smuggling to Hezbollah, chemical stockpiles, and regime enablers. But infiltration was suicide. Syrian Mukhabarat agents swarmed every corner, tipped off by double agents and electronic surveillance. Nobody realized then that Mossad's boldest play would come not from bombs or hacks, but from the oldest trick in the spy handbook: deception through death. This mission began as routine sabotage but spiraled into a fight for survival. What went wrong? At the heart of this extraordinary tale were not the ghosts of espionage past, like the legendary Eli Cohen. No, this wasn't the 1960s saga of a lone spy dangling from a noose in Damascus Marjah Square. These were modern operatives, hardened by the shadows of the 21st century, codenamed Shadow 1 and Shadow 2, both in their mid-30s. Elite products of Israel's Sayeret Matkal commando unit, then honed to razor sharpness in Mossad's secretive Caesarea division, the crown jewel of deep cover insertions and sabotage ops. Shadow 1 hailed from the bustling streets of Tel Aviv, a wiry figure at 59 with piercing green eyes and a psychology degree from Hebrew University that made him a master of the human mind. Had spent years posing as a humanitarian aid worker in the labyrinthine refugee camps of Gaza, slipping explosives into UN supply crates while whispering sympathies to grieving mothers, his cover so airtight that even Israeli handlers second-guessed his loyalty during polygraphs. His partner, Shadow 2, cut a stark contrast. A burly Druze Israeli from the Golan Heights village of Majd al-Shams, standing 62 with hands like shovels forged from farm labor and IDF service, fluent in every Arabic dialect, from Levantine purs to Bedouin gutturals, making him the perfect logistics anchor and close-quarters killer who'd, once single-handedly, extracted a compromised asset from Beirut under mortar fire. Overseeing them from afar was their handler, Orion, a silver-haired phantom in his late 52nds, operating out of a nondescript safe house in Amman's diplomatic quarter, a veteran whose scars traced back to the chaotic aftermath of the 1,980 seconds. Entebbe raids, Echo's head, coordinated the exfiltration of Ugandan collaborators post-rescue, learning firsthand how bureaucracy could doom the boldest plans. On the Syrian side loomed the monstrous Colonel Rami Mahmoud, Mazet prison's iron-fisted warden, a gaunt chain-smoker in his early 60s with a neatly trimmed mustache hiding a sadist's grin, notorious for personally overseeing disappearances. Head earned his stripes in the 1982 Hama massacre as a young lieutenant, crushing Muslim Brotherhood uprisings with barrel bombs and summary executions, and by 2017, his ledger included hundreds of tortured confessions from ISIS suspects and rebel sympathizers alike. His office walls adorned with framed photos of broken prisoners kneeling before Assad portraits. Among the rank-and-file guards was Ahmed al-Khatib, a 28-year-old chain-smoking conscript from rural Homs, gaunt from malnutrition and drowning in gambling debts to underground Damascus bookies, had been press-ganged into service after his village rebelled, his AK-47 more prop than weapon, his nights haunted by morphine-fueled card games that left him ripe for the smallest bribe. Psychologically, the Mossad duo was a fortress of compartmentalization, drilled relentlessly in Mossad's farm training camps near Herzliya. Years of simulated captures taught them to detach emotion, like shedding a skin, viewing pain not as agony but as a temporary fog to navigate, their minds segmented into watertight chambers where mission intel floated untouched by screams or starvation pangs. Shadow 1 drew from his psych studies, reciting cognitive behavioral mantras under his breath to reframe beatings as data points for adaptation, while Shadow 2 leaned on Drew's fatalism, invoking mountain folklore of spirits outlasting stone. Yet, in the dripping isolation of Meze's cells, reeking of urine, sweat, and distant cries, doubt began its insidious creep like damp rot through concrete. Shadow 1, fixated on his wife's tear-streaked face from their last encrypted video call, wondering if escape's slim odds justified orphaning their 2-year-old daughter to a life of guarded anonymity. Shadow 2, devout and family-bound, prayed silently toward Jerusalem, torn between duty to kin and the sacred vow of never leaving a comrade behind. These men weren't superhumans. They were fathers, husbands, and patriots pushed to the existential brink, their psyches fraying yet resilient, each man becoming the other's anchor in the abyss. What nobody realized at the time was how this inner turmoil fueled their genius. The raw fear sharpened their deceptions, turning personal hell into operational gold. The players were locked in, their motivations a volatile brew of survival instinct, national loyalty, and sheer human defiance. Now, the timeline ignites and it hurtles toward an impossible end, with bodies zipped into bags under a blood-red moon. It all began in the bitter chill of late 2016. Shadow 1 and Shadow 2 made their way stealthily from the rugged heights of the Golan, weaving through a labyrinthine Hezbollah tunnel that snaked beneath the war-torn border. They were disguised meticulously as Syrian army defectors, men broken by war but burning with a shared cause. Their cover story was razor-sharp. Smugglers carrying critical intelligence on Iranian arms convoys, funneling precision-guided missiles into Syrian and Hezbollah hands. Weeks unfolded like a spy novel as they blended effortlessly into the crowded, dusty refugee camps surrounding Daraa, faces among faces, voices swallowed by chaos. They slipped tracking devices onto the rusting undersides of weapons-laden trucks, tools that shimmered invisibly with satellite signals. Success came sudden and brutal. The trackers pinged, pinpointing shipment routes that Israel's Air Force obliterated with surgical strikes. But in war, no victory is without cost. The fissure appeared on January 15, 2017. A whisper, a bribe, a moment's weakness, a local informant, bankrolled by the Mukhabarat intelligence, betrayed them at a seemingly routine checkpoint. The night fractured with rapid gunfire. Shadow 2 was hit hard. Shrapnel tore through his thigh, sending shards of pain and blood into the dank streets. Shadow 1 escaped only a graze to his shoulder, the sting a cruel reminder of fate's gamble. In the chaotic aftermath, they were captured and thrown into the belly of one of Syria's darkest beasts, a Damascus safe house where brutality awaited. Their bodies bore the marks of preliminary beatings, but those were merely the overtures. By January 20, the grim walls of Mossad prison swallowed them whole. The first week was a relentless assault on mind and body. Days blended into nights, broken only by the droning propaganda of Assad's speeches booming through crackling radios. In the second week, the torture escalated into waterboarding sessions where the interrogators demanded names of Mossad handlers, operational details, and their connection to conspiracy threads unseen. Unbeknownst even to their captors, each agent had smuggled in a tiny cyanide capsule, their last lifeline if the unbearable crossed the brink. But Orion, monitoring from afar through a hidden GPS burst transmitter, forbade using it. Escape was imperative, death was surrender. The agents turned inward, beginning phase 1 of their plan, feigning illness. They refused sustenance, deliberately pushing their bodies toward dehydration. Guards noted their gauntness, the hollowing eyes of prisoners changing from defiance to plea. February deepened this eerie transformation. The agents staged a suicide attempt with razor blades, smuggled cleverly through sympathetic inmates. Punishment was swift solitary confinement where sound vanished but paranoia thundered. By March, their bodies were sallow, skeletal, starved by choice and circumstance, a horrifying spectacle meticulously monitored through Orion's encrypted drops of guidance. Phase 2 unfolded with brutal subtlety. A radicalized Sunni nurse, bribed and sympathetic to the anti-Assad cause, smuggled in sedatives disguised as vitamins. These drugs were heavy on scopolamine, expertly administered to mimic failing organs, to convince medical eyes that death was imminent. On March 28, Colonel Rami Mahmoud, the sadistic warden, ordered medical examinations. Syrian doctors pronounced acute renal failure, a diagnosis tragically plausible amid malnutrition and torture. The timeline reached its critical crescendo. Orders came to forge fake death certificates. Overnight masterpieces, crafted by Mossad's finest forgers in Tel Aviv, funneled through Jordanian intermediaries, operating in murky networks between two hostile states. Approval for a prisoner transfer arrived on April 2, setting the stage for a high-stakes performance. At dawn, an ambulance was scheduled to carry the bodies away. Sheets cloaked the prisoners, now paralyzed beneath paralytics that stilled breathing and heartbeats alike. The clock ticked cruelly as the agents lay motionless, their hearts pounding under veils of deception. But tension spiraled when one suspicious guard hesitated a fleeting moment laden with danger. What if they were faking? What if this elaborate ruse was exposed, dooming the entire operation? Every breath, every second, balanced on a razor's edge, as poker-faced Mossad operatives gambled with their lives against a merciless regime. This was not mere escape. It was a symphony of deception, desperation, and audacity playing out in the heart of enemy territory. This was only the beginning of the most perilous chapter in Mossad's history, a chapter where death was a mask and survival was the ultimate espionage weapon. Mossad's playbook here was a masterclass in tradecraft, layered with medical precision and psychological warfare. First, the illness simulation. Drawing from CIA MK-Ultra deprogramming files smuggled to Mossad post-Cold War, they used controlled fasting combined with diuretics, contraband pills hidden in soap bars. This dropped their weights 25%, mimicking tuberculosis or sepsis common in Syrian prisons. Why? Guards saw what they expected, broken enemies succumbing. What it meant bought time without raising alarms. Nobody realized the psych angle. Shadow 1 whispered defeatist mantras to each other, eroding their own morale visibly to sell despair. Next, the death fake. Injectable paralytics like succinylcholine, sourced from black market Jordanian pharmacies, administered by the nurse via IV lines during a treatment visit. Pulse oximeters rigged to show flat lines. Makeup artists prepped dummy wounds with coagulated pig blood, halal workaround for authenticity. Corpses were prepped with rigor mortis poses using braces under sheets. The body transfer exploited Syrian bureaucracy. Fake docs listed autopsies, complete, release to family plots. Ambulance driver? A Mossad asset, paid in Bitcoin, routed through Turkish exchanges. Border crossing, hidden compartments under gurneys. GPS, guided to Israeli lines. Intelligence detail, real-time SIGINT from Unit 8200 jammed Syrian radios during transit. Psychologically, the duo endured buried alive terror, claustrophobia training from mock coffin drills paid off. But the technique's genius? It weaponized enemy arrogance. Syrians never autopsied infidels. One slip, a twitching finger, and it crumbles. How close did they come? Layered redundants, cyanide backups, micro-detonation vests as last-ditch distractions. The why? Mossad doctrine prioritizes agent extraction over mission data. Interrogation resistance techniques included mnemonics to recall cover stories under duress and gray man invisibility post-escape. This wasn't improvisation. It was a rehearsed op from Mossad's rescue wing, evolved from Entebbe. The depth revealed Syrian vulnerabilities, corrupt underlings, overworked guards. But perfection? A guard's flashlight beam lingered too long on the sheets. Tension peaked. The first twist sliced through the tension like a knife in the dark, striking right in the heart of the staging phase on March 30, just as the paralytic drugs succinylcholine, laced with neuromuscular blockers, coursed like liquid ice through Shadow 1 and Shadow 2's veins, freezing muscles into death-like rigidity while their minds screamed in silent vigilance. Word had come down from Colonel Mahmoud's office, a last-minute demand from his ruthless deputy, Major Hassan al-Din, a bulldog of a man with a scarred face from a 2013 Rebel IED blast, notorious for his resurrection sessions where half-dead prisoners were revived just to break again. Al-Din, suspicious of the duo's sudden decline after weeks of defiance, insisted on one final interrogation to extract any lingering Mossad secrets before the corpses were cleared for transfer. His psychological profile, gleaned from Orion's pre-mission dossiers, revealed a man obsessed with control, haunted by the ghosts of comrades lost to Israeli strikes, driving him to paranoia that made him poke at every anomaly. Shadow 2, teetering on the edge of semi-consciousness in his cell, felt the guard's rough hands yanking him onto a gurney. To sell the ruse, he bit clean through his lower lip in a calculated act of desperation, warm blood flooding his mouth and pooling realistically on the stained sheets below authentic crimson rivulets that convinced al-Din this was no ploy, just another infidel crumbling under Syrian steel. Cleared after a perfunctory pulse check with gloved fingers, the major grunted approval and stalked off, oblivious to the micro camera hidden in Shadow 1's fake tooth relaying the all-clear to Orion. But why this near catastrophe? It exposed the razor-thin margin of error in Mossad's op. One overzealous torturer could unravel months of prep. What nobody realized then was how this brush with exposure forged their resolve, turning fear into fuel. Yet the real pivot, the fulcrum on which their fates balanced, exploded into motion at 4 a.m. on April 2 as stretchers groaned under the weight of the shrouded corpses being loaded into the waiting ambulance amid the prison's fog-shrouded courtyard, the air thick with diesel fumes and the distant wail of jackals. Ahmed al-Khatib, the chain-smoking guard whose gambling debts had ballooned to 500,000 Syrian pounds from rigged cockfights in Damascus underbelly dens, palmed a bribe Rolex, from the radicalized nurse, actually a Mossad-engineered tracker with GPS, pinging every 30 seconds back to Unit 8,200 satellites. Desperation clouded his judgment. Head radioed a fragmented tip-off suspicion to his sergeant, mumbling about shifty eyes on the nurse and bodies too limp. His voice slurred from cheap Iraq, alerting a ripple of doubt up the chain. The ambulance lurched forward, tires crunching gravel, but a looming checkpoint materialized like a specter sandbagged Air Force intelligence post manned by twitchy conscripts with thermals scanning for heat signatures. Orion, sweating in his Amman safehouse amid banks of laptops, executed a pre-planned hack, infiltrating Syrian traffic cams via a zero-day exploit bought from dark web Ukrainian coders. He triggered a false road closure alert for IED threat, diverting the patrol just as floodlights swept perilously close. Heartbeats thundered silently under paralytics. One agent's mind raced through contingency drills, cyanide or detonation vest. Why this twist? Al-Khatib's greed was the perfect blind spot, human frailty weaponized by Mossad's tradecraft. The what it meant, Syrian incompetence laid bare, their mukhabarat more focused on internal purges than border ghosts. Twist 2 detonated inside the speeding vehicle, a battered Fiat masquerading as Red Crescent Aid, as the nurse codename Falcon, a 42-year-old widow radicalized by her brother's barrel bomb death in Aleppo, administered revival antidotes, physostigmine injections straight into thighs, chemical keys reversing the paralysis in agonizing waves of pins and needles fire. Gasping awake like drowning men breaching waves, Shadow 1 and 2 shed their bloodied sheets to find themselves surrounded by armed Mossad. Exfil's 4 Katsavim, cutters disguised as medics, their AKs swapped for stethoscopes, faces blackened with coal, whispering shalom. Ghosts in Hebrew accents, thick with relief. The van barreled toward the border, but another twist clawed at them. A Syrian patrol jeep, Al-Khatib's tip bearing fruit, screamed from a side road, headlights piercing the dawn like accusatory fingers. Israeli Heron drones buzzed overhead in a masterful feint, simulating airstrikes with chaff bursts and dummy flares that lit the sky orange, sowing chaos as patrols scattered yelling, "Zionist pigs." This covered the desperate sprint across minefields, agents hobbling on numb legs through tripwires marked by night vision ghosts from Orion's feed. Psychologically, the elation of rebirth crashed into a maelstrom of paranoia. Were they truly free, or shadows in a deeper dream? Shadow 1 hallucinated pursuers for weeks post-extraction, his psych degree no shield against the buried alive trauma. Shadow 2 clutched a prayer bead, Drew's chants warding off the void. Nobody saw the final twist uncoiling. Back in Israel's Negev debrief bunkers, amid polygraphs and IV drips, their smuggled microfilm revealed Hezbollah battalion cohorts, crippling an entire rocket brigade mid-rearm intel that saved Tel Aviv from barrages. Heroes forged in hell, or lucky ghosts dancing on fate's edge. The climax loomed at the extraction point, where victory or oblivion hung by a thread. Dawn broke over the Golan as the ambulance screeched into a wadi, doors flying open. Shadow 1 and 2 tumbled out, legs numb, lungs burning from sedatives. Exfil Team 4, Mossad Katsavim, in Bedouin garb, hauled them to a Black Hawk chopper thumping rotors. But confrontation erupted. Syrian Hind helicopters screamed inbound, alerted by Al-Khatib's fragmented report. Tracer fire stitched the sand. Pilots evaded with flares. Agents fired Uzi bursts from the bird. The reveal hit Orion via satlink, corpses walking. Tel Aviv erupted in cheers. On board, medics pumped IVs, revealing the catch they'd smuggled microfilm with regime officer names, worth millions in trades. Heart rates stabilized at 180 BPM. As Syria declared the bodies stolen by rebels, Israel stayed silent. The ghosts had won. But freedom's price? scars that never heal. What followed shattered everything. Back in Israel by April 3, the agents underwent 72-hour decons, psych evals, detox, family reunions under gag orders. Shadow 1 divorced, haunted by prison screams. Shadow 2 wrote anonymous memoirs leaked years later. Syria fumed, Mahmoud demoted. Mezeh, lockdowns futile. Investigations fingered the nurse. She vanished. Likely Mossad extracted. Hezbollah convoys halted for months, costing Assad millions. Orion got a quiet medal. But consequences rippled. Syrian-Israeli shadow war intensified, with tit-for-tat assassinations. Agents' families relocated under new IDs. Psychologically, PTSD manifested nightmares of sheets suffocating. Nobody realized the intel hall decrypted Iranian nukes routes, averting strikes. Syria buried empty coffins publicly, fueling conspiracy theories. The escape exposed prison rot, 40% guard bribery rates per leaked cables. Justice? Elusive. The ghosts faded into legend. This op redefined exfiltration. Mossad refined Phoenix Protocol fake deaths now standard, exported to allies like MI6. Syria's regime, humiliated, poured billions into border tech, weakening war efforts. Geopolitically, it signaled Israel's reach, no prison safe. Intel sharing with Saudis bloomed, isolating Iran. Psychologically, it proved human will trumps steel bars, agents' mental fortitude, honed by Krav Maga, mind training, outfoxed machines. Broader, eroded Assad trust, sparking internal purges, killing 200 officers. For espionage, it means regimes must verify every corpse. Israel's edge sharpened. Enemies adapt slower. But dark side, emboldened reckless ops, risking escalations. The world got safer from WMDs, yet shadows lengthen. What if copycats fail spectacularly? Beware the illusion of control empires crumble on overlooked details like a bribed guard's greed. Takeaway 1, preparation is survival. Mossad's decade of drills saved lives. 2, psychology wins wars. Feigned despair broke spirits before bodies. 3, alliances are fragile. One informant undid months. Warnings for nations. Audit your prisons, vet your people. For spies, death is negotiable. This tale warns us all, truth hides in the shadows and ghosts walk among us. If intelligence thrills you, hit like, subscribe for more deep dives into the unseen wars shaping our world. Drop a comment. What's the boldest escape you've heard? Share this expose knowledge is the ultimate weapon. Stay vigilant. Fade to black.